Good evening, everyone. As one grows up, it's impossible not to be asked at least once what they want to be when they grow up or what they want to do when they finish school, because adults love to ask it. What's been funny to me is seeing just how many adults are actually aware of the pressures that this question brings, as well as the potentially debilitating effects of it. That's down to no fault of anyone asking it, however, as it's often brought up with innocent or caring intentions, or sometimes because the person asking it just doesn't know what else to talk to an adolescent about in their life. I can kind of relate to that already. Teenagers just seem to take things differently is my bottom line. However, this is not necessarily a bad thing. Growing up and finishing school feels like a graduation in more ways than one, especially as it's the point in one's life which people will tell you your life finally begins. However, I've also heard that this is true of finally moving out from your parents' house, finally being fully independent, or even finishing a degree. So which one is it? I wouldn't know. I haven't done any of those things yet myself. When faced with so much uncertainty, I wonder what the point is in people asking any questions to each other about the future, because nobody seems to really know anything about it with any certainty. If you had to ask me, though, if you had to ask me, I would say that one's life begins on the day they're born. But not to be facetious, I'd rather take the anxiety of waiting out of the equation and not take to heart what some might have to say about my life trajectory, because nobody knows my life trajectory except me. And I don't even know it. I've been told any time you spend overthinking the future is time wasted to do something with your life in the present, that you will never possess as much freedom as you do right now. However, of course, that's overlooking how difficult it is to utilize that freedom in every passing moment. It's been frustrating for me growing up realizing just how fleeting freedom is. From a childlike perspective, adults can do seemingly whatever they want, and you expect to have that freedom as you reach adulthood. However, it's not necessarily assured. And sure, adults do have a lot of freedom, certainly more so than teenagers or children. However, when I talk about freedom in this context, I'm not necessarily talking about being able to go out wherever, buy whatever you want, or associate with whoever, like objective freedoms. I'm talking about subjective freedoms. Being free with yourself and being in touch with yourself. Now, I know I've barely lived a life compared to the majority of the population. However, I stand firmly in the belief that I haven't had to live much to know what happens to one's freedoms as they get older, especially as well as I've gotten older. Getting older is gaining perspective and in turn becoming wiser. We're all told wisdom and maturity is a blessed thing, and it certainly is. However, we're also quick to discount naivety and pretension, which I would argue are of equal importance to being wise and mature. Let me explain. Children do absurd things, yes? Because they do not fear judgment. From as far back as I can remember, I've always given myself wholeheartedly to whatever creative passion or hobby I was into. If it was available to me, I'd do it. Some things came and went, sure, but all the way up until now, I've never stopped being in constant pursuit of that next thing to be absolutely crazy about. And with that, surrounding factors have never really had an impact on my search. The only thing that's changed for me now, as I've grown older, is trying to figure out how that search translates into my adult life, because all of a sudden, being older and growing into myself more, I'm a lot more conscious of my attributes, what I want, and I've become a lot more anxious about trying new things. It hasn't been all positive, because I tell myself that most aren't as impressed with an adult's achievements as they are a child, and by that same token, people aren't as forgiving with failure as you grow older. Therefore, the future becomes a dreaded thing, because it feels like you only have one shot to get it right, and you've got to get it right really quick. But this isn't the case. And this hasn't been for a long time. I don't know why this thought is so intrusive and just prevalent among every emerging generation. What happened to all the freedom from childhood? I'm going to leave that thought hanging there. I'm going to move on. And I'm going to say, much to my dismay, I've seen so many of my friends drop, sideline, or delay their aspirations over the years, all usually because of some stringent beliefs they hold about the way the world works. But the world works according to you. Things will happen to you, though never for you. If you possess that freedom to try and fail, you can get kind of whatever you want out of your life. Being pretentious is therefore seen as a negative for its inauthenticity, but it can also be a means to uplift oneself and empower oneself just enough to actually try something. When I look back on a lot of my past achievements or projects, I can honestly tell you I didn't have the best idea or approach about what I was doing. I'm going to circle back on that. I honestly didn't know what I was doing. But that didn't matter at the time because I thought I did. And if I didn't believe that, I probably wouldn't have ever done it. Naivety and curiosity are therefore both your best friends. And it becomes increasingly difficult with age to hold on to them, like with any best friends, because with age comes experience. For younger people, however, being naive or curious is really second nature, and it's very important not to take that for granted. Just because you don't know anything doesn't mean you don't know anything. Do not let any one person or institution tell you that something is to be done one way when you yourself know that there's another way to do something, one that is just as legitimate and maybe even better for you. In challenging these structures, if things appear difficult, they will inevitably become easier. If ambitions are left idle, they can begin to feel like a matter of circumstance, like you don't know the right people, you're not the right age, or you just don't have the right access to things, whatever kind of excuse you can think of as well. I've not come to expect immediate success from just trying. Success is unexpected, it's slow, it's so elusive. What's worked best for me, though, is just trying to get started at all because there really is no time like the present. Thank you.